If someone asked what the most underrated stat in the NBA is, what would you say? Win shares? Rebounds? Some stats don't get as much credit as they should, but one you probably haven't considered is hand size. Today, it's time to take a dive into the biggest hands in NBA history. Kawhi Leonard. If we're going to talk about NBA players with large hands, there's not a ton of better players to talk about than the one who got his nickname because of his hand size. Kawhi Leonard is known as the Claw, or depending on how you want to spell it, the Claw with a K. That's not a dinosaur pun that came from Kawhi's time with the Raptors. The nickname has stuck with him for a while now, and the actual origin is his skill at hawking the ball and getting steals. Kawhi is one of the best defensive players in the league, and his 9.75-inch long hands are one of his best tools for keeping the other team from scoring. Kawhi wasn't the biggest star in college. He ended up at San Diego State, a school that's respectable, but by no means a giant in the world of college basketball. Despite playing a big role on the team, he only averaged 15.7 points per game during his last college season. Those numbers aren't the kind that make a player stand out to NBA scouts. However, Kawhi had one thing going for him coming out of college. Sports Illustrated wrote before the draft that Kawhi was a physical marvel, and alongside his 7-foot, 3-inch wingspan, his large hand size was mentioned. A lot of the media were convinced Kawhi's outside shooting, or lack thereof, would be a problem in the league, but his athleticism and work ethic were enough to make the Spurs trade for him after he was selected by the Pacers. Kawhi was named the Defensive Player of the Year twice since coming into the league and has been on the All-NBA Defensive First Team 3 times. He was also the NBA steals leader in 2015. All of that probably would have been harder if he didn't have the perfect hand size for knocking the ball away from the opponent or getting just the right amount of extra reach to block a shot. Shaquille O'Neal. You can't talk about the biggest hands in NBA history without bringing up Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq has some of the largest hands the league has ever seen, at 10.25 inches long and 12 inches wide. That's an entire foot if you weren't keeping track. It's not exactly surprising. Shaq was one of the biggest players in NBA history all around, at 7 feet 1 inches tall with a listed weight 325 pounds. Just like big hands suit Kawhi Leonard's playstyle, they were a major asset for Shaq when he was in the league from 1992 to 2011. We all know Shaq for his dunks and playing the post, but one of the most important abilities for a center is stopping shots from the other team. With a massive hand width, it's a lot easier to get fingers on the ball and send it somewhere else, away from the basket. This also helped Shaq out from very early on in his career, because in 1992, he was the NCAA blocks leader while playing with the LSU Tigers. He had achieved the accomplishment of becoming the rebounding leader the year prior, and was selected first overall in the 1992 draft by the Orlando Magic. Shaq had an impressive average of 2.6 blocks per game during his career, as well as 10.9 rebounds per game, so you can be sure that his huge hand size was one of the factors in achieving those stats. Rajon Rondo. Rajon Rondo might not top the list for the biggest hands in the NBA, but there's a good reason his hand size is still noteworthy. Rondo is 6 feet 1 inches tall, making him a lot shorter than many of the players that dominate the hand size charts. However, he still has a 9.5-inch hand length and a 10-inch span, which are both impressive numbers for someone of his size. This factors into Rondo's game a bit differently than hand size does for the others around the top of the charts. A center or a forward obviously has an advantage in blocking shots and rebounding compared to a player with smaller hands. For a point guard, the trait is more useful for controlling the ball and making perfect passes. Rondo has averaged 8.6 assists per game over the course of his career, and during his best years, when he was with the Boston Celtics, he averaged more than 11 assists per game. Like Kawhi Leonard, Rondo's large hands might have helped him with steals also. Rondo was the steals leader back in 2010, and has averaged 1.7 steals per game over his career. At his peak, that number was 2.3 for 2 years straight with the Celtics. Giannis Antetokounmpo. This list wouldn't be complete without bringing up the Greek freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo. There's been many players in the NBA with absurd physicals, and just like Shaq was part of the last generation of players like this, Giannis looks like one of the leading members of the new wave. His Bucks are one of the best teams in the league despite the result in the playoffs and his uncertain future with the team, and that's in no small part because of his raw athleticism. That athleticism includes a 9.85-inch hand length and a span of 12 inches, which puts him on par with Shaq in the second category. Not a bad player to share a statistic with. Giannis was the MVP for the 2018-2019 season and the Defensive Player of the Year for the most recent season, with a career average so far of 8.9 rebounds per game and 1.3 blocks per game. Having all-around athleticism, a pair of huge hands, and surprising agility for a big man have certainly been part of why Giannis has achieved so much success at 25 years of age. Thank you so much for watching, and please remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe on the video.